Chapter 8 Flying Cockroaches Can Burn. "Hey Zuku," Kacchan called from across the beach. "Come see what I found." Izuku perked up, looking over at his loud friend. He was perched on top of an old fridge to get a better view of everything around, slowly sketching out a map of the larger items. "I don't want to get down," Izuku yelled back, holding up his paper. "I might lose where I was." "What?" Kacchan yelled back. "I said," Izuku screamed, "I don't want to lose where I was." He used his notebook as a megaphone, yelling into it. "What?" Kacchan yelled again. Izuku shook his head, waving a hand at his friend in dismissal as he smoothed back out his map. The first step to clearing the beach was to actually have a plan. He moved over on the fridge as loud blasts drew nearer until Kacchan stood next to him, grinning. "Hell yeah, you see that hide I got?" he asked, clapping his hands together and forming a pop. Izuku wiped some of the embers off his paper before grinning up at his friend. "If you actually wear the bracers I made you, you won't get to tie his shoulders," he pointed out with a grin. Kacchan bopped him upside the head, plopping down beside him. "Why you gotta be such a nerd all the time?" he asked, shouldering him. Izuku quickly picked up the pen before he messed up the line. "'Cause," he said, glaring over at his friend who grinned back, "one of us needs to have the brains to be a hero." Kacchan gasped in mock hurt, holding a hand to his chest dramatically. "How fucking dare you?" he asked. "I'll remind you that I am second in the class." Izuku snorted. "Only because I'm there to actually make you apply yourself," he countered. Kacchan raised a finger to respond before pausing. "Yeah, no, you're not wrong," he said with a shrug. But what about you?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Izuku tipped his head, looking down at his paper. "I mean, I'm the top of the class, and with how—" "I don't mean that, smartass," Kacchan yelled, leaning back. "I meant those noodle arms of yours. When are you actually going to get down there and do some real cleaning?" Izuku gestured to his notes, making sure his pen wasn't clicked on. "I'm working on a map of the place. In order to get maximum cleaning done in the time we have left..." Kacchan covered his mouth quickly, tisking. "Nope. No fucking muttering today." He grabbed the notebook from Izuku's hands, standing up before the smaller boy could grab it back. "You don't get this," he teased, holding the notebook just out of reach, "until we actually get some work done." Izuku glared at him, trying in vain to drag his arm down. "Give me!" he yelled, standing on his toes. Kacchan laughed, keeping it up and out of his grip. Izuku paused, stepping back. He grinned before charging forward at Kacchan's stomach. Kacchan yelled in surprise, trying to turn midair as Izuku snatched his notebook back, landing right on top of him. "And that's why you play in your area," Izuku said, tucking the book back into his backpack. Kacchan shoved him off, groaning as he rubbed his back. "I think your bony ass managed to hurt more than the old mattress." He looked down at where they had landed before jumping off it quickly. "Fucking kill it!" he yelled, pointing at a dark spot on the bed. Izuku hummed, looking over at the little cockroach beside him. "He's totally harmless," Izuku said, holding a hand out to the bug. He managed to startle it, and it walked a bit before taking off into the sky, buzzing loudly. "God fucking damn it! Fuck off!" Kacchan screamed, aiming a hand at the bug that flew right for him. "Wait, no!" Izuku screamed, moving to jump at his friend. But his feet slipped on an old bottle, and he crashed into Kacchan's chest, redirecting his arm. The explosion hit a barrel of black gunk, growing in size as Izuku quickly grabbed Kacchan and dragged him back. They watched the flames grow, taking out the mattress and melting bottles slowly. "Well," Kacchan whistled, "might want to call someone for that." He ran his hand through his hair, pausing. Izuku looked over to him with wide eyes, right as the cockroach landed directly on his hand. "Shit!" Izuku screamed, running for the water as the second explosion started up. "Izuku!" his mother screamed, barreling into the police station precinct. "Are you all right, baby?" she asked, taking his face in her hands and looking over it. She took his scratched arms up before pausing. "Oh, you all right, Seven?" she asked, tightening her grip on the hand. Nana nodded, smiling at the worried woman. "I'm all right. So is he, just a little frightened." She shrugged. "He'll be back later." Inko shook her head, sighing as she pushed a lock of hair behind Nana's ear. "It's all right, as long as he can take a second. Are you sure you're okay?" She enunciated the word, still holding Nana's gaze. "I'm all right," she said, resting her other hand on Inko's. Izuku managed to get to the water before anything big, and Bakugou just had some minor scratches. She looked over at the boy who had fallen asleep, a line of drool coming from his mouth. Inko sighed in relief, nodding. I'm here for both of you. Mitsuki had a work-related matter, she explained. She went to touch Katsuki's hand before Nana stopped her. Behind you, she whispered, staring up at the newcomer. Shit. Inko turned around, wiping off her clothes as she stood up. Detective, I'm so sorry about all this, she said, sighing. Katsuki has a massive fear of bugs, but using his quirk at that beach. She shook her head, sighing. There were no other injuries from the fire, right? None at all, Tsukayuchi confirmed. Nana kept her gaze to the floor, hoping against all odds that the child's body would keep one of her closest friends from recognizing her. Luckily, Izuku here called for the department quickly. We were able to keep all damage to a minimum. They just happened to hit a flammable substance. Inko sighed again, bowing. Thank you so much. I don't know how I can ever repay you. Naosama bent down to look Nana in the eye, but she turned her head away, avoiding his gaze. Are you all right? Naosama asked, his voice laced with innocence. Oh shit. Toshinori totally told him that Izuku was his. Whether before or after didn't matter. He knew, and now Nana had to keep him from knowing too much. Even if her old friend could keep them safe, it was dangerous. Too dangerous. She nodded slightly, biting her cheek to keep from speaking. She had evaded his quirk for years, and she wasn't going to stop now. Bakugou seemed to perk up right as Naosama went to touch Nana's hand. He grabbed his wrist tightly, glaring at the detective. Don't fucking touch her, he said, clicking his tongue as he wiped the drool from his cheek. Inko was quick to step in, prying Bakugou's fingers from Naosama's quickly. I'm so sorry about that, she bowed again to the detective before turning to Bakugou. Apologize, young man. That kind of behavior is unacceptable. Bakugou crossed his arms, side-eyeing Nana as he shook his head definitively. Inko went to speak, but Naosama stepped in, always quick to smooth things over. It is quite all right. I'm sure he's just a bit riled up since the last time we spoke. It wasn't under the best circumstances. Illegal, Bakugou corrected, frowning. It was under illegal circumstances. Inko ran a hand through her hair, shaking her head. I'm so sorry for both of their behavior. Things have just been a bit tense with the move and all. I'm sure they're just tired. Naosama laughed, shaking his head. It's quite all right. It has been nice to speak to you again, Miss Midoriya. She nodded, smiling slightly. It has been. How have you been since then? Nana perked up slightly, hoping someone else was also making a note of this conversation. The two clearly knew each other. Probably through her successor, but it wasn't with any of the hate she had spoken to Chio with. It was kinder and more full, as if he hadn't been honest with her, which, given the way his eyes kept flickering over to Nana, he hadn't been. She stood up, stopping their conversation. She grabbed Inko's hand, pulling her towards the door. Are you all right, Seven? You're being quieter than normal, Inko asked, squeezing her hand assuredly. Just tired. Of him, she added in her head. Luckily, his eyes didn't get that slight sheen like they did when he detected a lie. She'd been down this road before. Bakugou snorted, but nodded, standing up as well. Let's go, Auntie, he said, taking her other hand. She sighed, shaking her head. I apologize for the intrusion, Tsukayuchi, she said. Seems like the kid wants to get going. Naosama nodded, laughing. That's no issue. Maybe we can schedule dinner or something, he added with a slight smile. Nana could see the moment Inko's cheeks blushed as she looked away slightly. Do it, Nana whispered, staring directly at Bakugou. He grinned, counting down quietly. On one, they both stepped as hard as they could on Naosama's feet. He quickly backed up, muttering something under his breath. Before Inko could apologize again, they dragged her out, each holding a hand. Kids! Inko yelled when they got down the street. What was that? Nana shrugged, smiling at Bakugou, who gave her a wicked grin back. Just tired. It was a week later when they were finally ungrounded and could return to the beach. Izuku had only stopped fronting when they were in public, wanting to take all of the notes he could while someone else did all the work. Honestly, it wasn't a bad trade-off, even if En was starting to get pissed about it. When was he not pissed? Here, this is stable, Izuku called to Kachan, who peeked his head around a large box. He glared, his eyes scanning the floor slowly. I swear to God, if there's another cockroach, I will burn it again, he promised. Izuku rolled his eyes, kicking away some ashes and soot to get onto the dirty beach sand left behind. You want to train for UA or not? He asked, reaching a hand for his friend. Kachan grumbled, tisking it and slowly joining him on the small patch. Not that bad. We can always go the vigilante route. Ow? Izuku said, pausing. I think I just got a headache, he said, rubbing his head. Kachan huffed, laughing as he grabbed some trash from the beach. You bring those gloves, dumbass? He asked, tossing and grabbing the old can. Izuku laughed, nodding as he pulled his bag around to the front. So, these will protect you from the glass shards. He handed a set of gloves over. These bags are specially designed to keep any sharp things from puncturing. Unfortunately, it doesn't help much with the smell, but there's nothing we can do about that. Kachan huffed, taking the unopened bags. You brought extra, right? Kachan asked. This beach needs a lot of them. Izuku laughed, nodding. Of course I did. Anyways, I also have some bags specifically for anything that can be recycled. And for big stuff, we can just move it to one area. I've called around to some companies that can come drive it out. Kachan stared at him before punching him on the shoulder. What the fuck, man? He asked. Why are you being all smart and shit? 'Cause I am smart, Izuku countered. Anyways, I also have a first aid kit if needed, and lots of burn cream. He held the large vial, Kachan raising an eyebrow, in case you decide to freak out again. There was a fucking flying cockroach. What do you want from me? En kicked Bakugou's leg, forcing it further out. You need to drop into a lower stance. If your center of gravity isn't balanced, you'll be an easy target to attack. Bakugou rolled his eyes, shifting his stance back up. Listen, I don't need help from a wannabe fake hero like you, En. He drugged the name out like how he always did. En shook his head, stepping around the boy into the front. Don't be using those names around anyone else. When Bakugou raised an eyebrow, he added, I mean it. It's for your own guys' safety. Bakugou rolled his eyes but shifted lower, raising his arms. Why are you guys so secretive about your names? He asked. And the bit Izuku knows about you? You guys are getting pissed for no reason. En shrugged, adjusting the kid's arms again. Look, you guys don't need to pry into anything, especially with our names. He matched the stance once Bakugou had it, slowly starting a dance around each other. As you guys so eloquently put it, we are part of a collective who borrow old heroes' names. Bakugou huffed, but let him continue speaking. If some villains thought we were the real deal, they would come after you kids, En explained. And especially before you two get into the hero school, you have to be able to care for yourself and Izuku. Okay, Bakugou said with a shrug. If villains are too much of dumbasses to realize you're fake, then sure. He dropped his hands, changing his stance. En grinned, stepping forward and swinging a fist around. He nailed Bakugou on the side of his cheek, his head going the opposite way. Don't drop your hands, he ordered, dropping back into pose. Bakugou glared at him, raising his arms again. Okay, but what if I don't want to study? Bakugou asked, slamming the book shut. Second sighed, rubbing his eyes. Look, you can't get into through sheer strength. Without good knowledge or planning, you won't get anywhere as a hero. He reached over and opened back up the book, pointing to the questions. But this isn't even anything interesting, Bakugou countered. He shut the book again, sliding it away. It's rules and laws, Second stated, opening it back up. I know you want to just run in there, but you need to learn now. Izuku can teach you basic quirk stuff and theories, but those do nothing without proper knowledge of the law. When Bakugou still didn't look interested, leaning back, he sighed, and loopholes to get around the law. Bakugou perked up slightly, grabbing the book. Finally, some interesting fucking information, he cursed, looking through it. Think we can find anything to piss off that detective anymore? Second hesitated, shaking his head. It's best we leave him alone for now, he stated, opening his own book. Now, let's get on to criminal interrogations, he said, looking down at the paper. To be fair, he was learning all of this for the first time. He was alive too long ago to actually know what the new rules and laws were with quirks. The world was in such disarray when he died, and none of the past users had actually really been able to speak to him. You guys are fucking weird, Bakugou muttered, raising an eyebrow. Second ignored him, returning to work. Are you guys ready? Inko asked nervously, shifting her feet. You have all your bands for when you shift, she said, looking at Daigoro. He nodded, showing them on the little lanyard she had attached to his backpack. They're all secured. Thank you. She nodded, wiping her hands nervously on her outfit. Okay, and Cats, you're all good? She double-checked as well. The blonde huffed, nodding. I don't need you fawning over me like I'm a bird, Auntie, he said harshly, but he didn't curse. I'm fine. She nodded, sighing. I'm so excited for you both. She wiped out her eyes as she started to cry. Moving in with you guys and getting to see you grow up so close together. You guys are some of the toughest, strongest kids I know. She knelt in front of them, taking both their hands. I know you guys are going to do amazing. Just trust in all the work you've done until now. Daigoro nodded along with Bakugou, who kept his gaze averted. We will, miss. Don't worry, okay? He tried to console her. She laughed, kissing his hand. I know it might be weird to you because to you you're my age, but I love you, okay? She said. You're my kid as much as Izuku is, and I want you to protect yourself. Promise me you can do that? Daigoro nodded slightly, smiling at the woman. I can do that. Izuku is a bit nervous about it, he confirmed. He might not be around for a bit, miss. She nodded with a sigh. That's all right. I know you guys are helping where I can't. She tightened her grip on his hand. And don't you miss me. Mom might be a bit too personal, but miss is far too formal. He nodded, looking over to Bakugou, who wiped at his eyes. Till the hag I said bye, he said, taking the lunchbox and storming out. Daigoro waved and followed behind him, laughing slightly. Bye, boys, she called after them as the door shut. He didn't speak till they were down on the street, headed for the train station. You're gonna let Zuku show off his good work, right? Bakugou asked, glaring at him. Daigoro laughed, nodding. Of course, kid. I'm sure he'll take back over once we get to the test section. He likes those a lot. Bakugou nodded in understanding. I'll try to get the fuckfaces to put us by each other, he planned. That way I can help catch you if you shift. Daigoro nodded, shouldering him. Glad to see you're finally warming up to us after all these years, he laughed. Bakugou growled, pushing into him slightly with a smile. You aren't bad, Dai, he said, but don't expect me to be all buddy-buddy if the asshole shows up. Daigoro nodded, chuckling, and really is a bit of an ass. Okay, so, at the very end there, you might have heard, like, a noise. It was my phone telling me I had a notification, my email. Sorry about that. I'm not gonna record all that because that was a lot to record, and if I re-record it, it's gonna sound strange. Anyways, sorry about that. I had to pause it earlier too because I have a render of the chapter posted before this going right now, and so I had to pause that because it finished and it made a big noise. Scared me. See, this one, I really love this chapter. It's so stupid with, Katsuki freaking out because of the flying cockroach, which fair, but it's just so stupid, but it's also, shows that progression. This chapter, I don't know if you could tell, like, listening to it, this is the one where I fell in love with the story. Before, there was a very faint idea, but this is the one where I actually fell in love with the story, and that's what I'm trying to get back by rereading it so that I can really make these, the last chapters really well. What else am I going to talk about? Oh, names. So, each of the Vestiges will actually call Katsuki by a different name based on how close they are. Like, Dai will start calling him Katsuki, and Nana will call him Katsuki or Kats, and we'll call him Bakugou for a while, because Bakugou will not allow him to call him anything else, because N is, an asshole. I love him, but he's an asshole. That part with Tsukayuchi. He was hitting on Inko, but not really. He was just kind of doing it to get close to Inko so he could, like, keep an eye on her. So they are not a thing in this. I did think about it. No, they're not a thing in this. Anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed listening to this one. The next chapter is called Memories of a Past Life, and I will see you there.